It's time for the Phantom Punch breakdown number 7. Doing a little bit of a revisit today in very timely fashion. Yours truly, Ghost Phantom, hitting us with a revisit of Zhang Weili's elbows, which is gonna be good and fun. So here we go. The elbows of Weili. Of course, that was the very first Phantom Punch breakdown. And I did not get time actually to watch this beforehand, Ghost, so I'm very excited to see what we were pointing out this time. But without further ado, let us get right into it, taking a look at some more beautiful elbow work. I'm never going to complain about seeing elbows, you guys. So get ready. Here we are. Zhang Weili mini breakdown, a redux from elbows. A rare and unexplored idea in MMA wrestling is the idea of kazushi. Kazushi is the act of breaking the opponent's balance. Recall the principles of judo/jujitsu, base, posture, connection, pressure. These principles can be used to execute kazushi. When a fighter achieves kazushi in clinch or wrestling exchanges, it gives that fighter endless attacking ideas. Right there. Speaking of Danielle Taylor from earlier, Zhang has a single collar tie and an underhook, as well as an established base. This allows her to break the opponent's posture and get hip separation for a potential knee. After throwing the knee, her opponent is now square and has reestablished a solid base and proper posture. Zhang does not let her opponent settle, so she responds with an outer reap in order to unbalance her opponent, kazushi. Wonderful stuff. Zhang positions her arms like she is about to do a head and arm throw, but not for the throw, but to make her opponent move laterally. Back it on up. As her opponent reestablishes her base and posture, Zhang immediately locks in a far side overhook. The opponent reacts by backing up at a sideways angle. She has to back up sideways because of the overhook, not the position of Zhang's base outside of the opponent's lead leg. Zhang plants her lead foot outside of her overhook as her rear foot pivots. Her opponent backing up sideways gave Zhang the space to free up her elbow. There it comes. Boom. Pain. Slow-mo time. Zhang is constantly using the idea of kazushi with dynamic movement as soon as she enters a clinch wrestling exchange. This gives her the ability to strike while pursuing the takedown at the same time. Too quick. At the same time, Zhang's movement is forcing her opponent to look for balance. Zhang is able to find strikes when the opponent looks to regain balance. It is well paced, Ghost, don't worry. Frantic action in that fight. Goodness, you forget about it. Feels like forever ago. Zhang does something unusual here. She bases in between her opponent's base to swing her rear foot outside of her opponent's foot. As Zhang throws her knee, she automatically throws her base foot outside of her opponent's lead foot while hanging on the single collar tie. Zhang used the motion of a head and arm throw, kazushi, to force her opponent to move towards Zhang's left foot. Zhang attempts an outside trip, which forces her opponent to move away from Zhang's hips. This is another example of kazushi, since she is constantly off-balancing her opponent. Zhang now uses a massive outer reap to complete the takedown while her opponent is off balance. Thanks for that, Ghost. That was very helpful. Just all over the place. And trip. Kazushi is an ancient term used when judo was first created, while the idea of kazushi is old. Striking while off-balancing your opponent is in the clinch is a new concept. Using takedowns to set up strikes in the clinch is very rare to see, since in judo you cannot strike, while in Muay Thai you cannot take someone down by attacking the legs or hip throws, but you can sweep. The current trend in MMA is the low calf kick, and a few years back it was the low line side kick and the oblique kick. How long do you think using active takedown attempts to set up knees and elbows in the clinch will be the new trend in MMA? Well, very interesting question there, Ghost. And let me fix the camera real quick before I come back on. If you look at all these other trends, here I want to do half screen if I can. Not that one. There we go. They last a couple years or so, and before it changes. Like if you look at the calf kick starting, you go back to Benson, who started off with it really kind of highlighting, at least in the UFC, right, to a very solid degree. And it didn't really catch on until a couple years later, and that was around he was champion in 2013-ish. Then before that, like you said, there was the little period of time, maybe 5-year stretches. I don't know. It's kind of hard to say off the top of my head here, but in this regard, I don't see why it would be why it wouldn't be the same, if not a little bit quicker, because in MMA, as you know, things are evolving every single day. Fighters getting better and better rapidly, and figuring out new ways to be effective in the fight game. So I don't think these kind of trends will be trends for too long, because then in that case they wouldn't be trends anymore, right? I don't know. We'll see. But either way, glad you pointed it out, my friend. So very interesting stuff as always there for episode number 7. Let me stop the screen share on that. Get on out of here. Check the old comments. What do we got, boys? James says, oh shit. Ghost says, actually, the first one was Misha Tate. That is right. My bad. Flip-flop. I knew it was one of the first two. See, we have so many now. I've already forgotten what the order was. But, Alvin says, yes, love these. Always good to learn something new. Jin says, and Taylor, what timing? Indeed it is. Sintro says, this is quite cool. I never thought Zhang was a wrestler or clinch fighter. You got to go back and watch the early fights, man. That was something she utilized those parts of her game, a good bit more than before she got the UFC, but obviously still in the UFC, as we saw in that fight. But yes, very overall talented individual is Ms. Zhang, of course, as Alvin would say. Rain says, man, she always looking to off-balance her opponent. I never saw how much, though, and how scientific it is. Alvin says, I was never really a fan of Ms. Zhang until I saw her documentary. Love her humility and her hard work. I love that these help me learn about her techniques. There you go, man. That's why they're here. Good stuff. We got Jin saying kazushi is a great idea, but striking off it is very difficult and uncommon since I never even heard of it. Jimmy says Kayla uses this unbalancing tactic. Well, with that judo. James says, to answer a ghost question, I don't think kazushi ever will. Too complicated. All right, there you go. And real quick, Joseph throwing in a comment going back to the Laura stuff. I don't like Laura backstage interview, but calling the fight, no thank you. I'd rather hear Misha, because last time she did the desk was Lewis versus Hunt. Wow, that was a while ago. Don't even remember that. But yeah, another great fandom punch breakdown as always. Thank you so much, Ghost, and for all your work and all the things you do, the support for the channel, everything, the show, all that good stuff. Always very enjoyable. Excited to see who you have next before we get to Emi Fujino, who you guys will remember is episode 9. And man, Ryzen's coming up quick too. Everything is just sneaking up on me.